Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with all of you. Should be a great conversation tonight. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We got a lot to talk about. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. So I'm really glad to be here. We're a great community here. We're doing great work. We're doing great stuff. So let's roll.
The American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Wow, everybody. Shout out to Lori Spencer. She is watching on her phone. She's been without power. There's been a tornado. Wow. If there's anyone who is working hard to watch this, it's you, Lori, and we give you a shout out. Our heart goes out to you. We're glad that you are safe, even though you may not have the electricity that you need. Hopefully the electricity comes back on. Shout out to you, Lori. Wow, you are the dedicated audience member. I think if we had an award for dedicated audience member, it would be for you, Lori. That one is intense. Enjoy the show while you can. So glad you're here to listen. And wow, everybody. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. The way we do things here is that for the first half of the show, I just talk about stuff. That's specific there, isn't it? That's the specific language we use here. I just talk about stuff, and then I talk about things, and then no, I'm just kidding. But the first half of the show, I just kind of talk. And then after that, we do the roll call, where I call people out as I see them, names and locations. We find out who's on the other side of the camera. And then after that, I answer super chat questions for the rest of the night. That's the way it works. So if you have something you want me to talk about in the second half of the show, by all means, just send me a super chat. I will write it down. That's the way we do things here. I write it down in the first half of the show. Then in the second half of the show, I answer your super chat questions. So if there's something you want me to give commentary. There's something you want me to give commentary on, I will give commentary upon it on the second half of the show. Yes, that's how I'll do it. Give commentary, right? What is it? It's like people tell me there's different types of British accents, right? You've got Cockney, like he's going to do commentary on the program, right? Like, right? And there's that, and then there's different types of British accents. But whatever that one was, the Christopher Hitchens one, right? Yes, I'm talking like this. Yeah. I was watching Christopher Hitchens one day on Fox News. I will never forget it. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment on Fox News. They asked Christopher Hitchens why he was an atheist. They asked him, and he said, well, not only do I think that God doesn't exist, I think that God's existence is not desirable. It's not desirable. If God did exist, it would be a lot like living in North Korea. There'd be someone watching everything you do. There'd be no privacy whatsoever. It would be awful. It would just be awful. All right, that was just a classic moment in television. I will never forget that. I will never forget Christopher Hitchens explaining to us that if God did exist, it would be kind of like living in North Korea. Kind of like living in North Korea. Yes. It'd be awful. Someone watching everything you do, watching over you. It'd be horrible. It'd be awful. Imagine having to watch me. I'm disgusting. Oh, my God. You don't want to know what I do in the privacy of my own home. Goodness gracious. I mean, it was Christopher Hitchens. God rest his soul. Anyway, or not, I guess, right? He was an atheist, outspoken atheist. I think in the final years of his life, Christopher Hitchens, it's a kind of a weird thing. Usually when people die, they get religious, right? They get religious when they die. Christopher Hitchens, when he died, he decided to get anti-religious. And like the last couple of years of his life, he went around the United States going to Bible colleges, debating conservatives. I mean, you can watch, there's hours and hours of him just debating evangelical Christians about topics. And he's up there. This is like 2 years before he dies, I mean, it's, and he eventually gets cancer and he dies. And, but he just spends the last couple of years of his life going around debating them. And saying things like, oh, do you really believe that Jacob's donkey spoke to him? Do you really believe that Jacob's donkey, a donkey, could speak? Did God make the donkey magically appear a voice box? Did this voice box magically appear in the donkey's throat and then begin speaking? How was it that Jacob's donkey spoke to him? How did this happen? I mean, that's like the debate he's having. This was the cutting edge of new atheism. I don't know if folks remember the new atheists. Do folks remember the new atheists? They're not really around much anymore, right? I guess, what's his name? Sam Harris is still doing a podcast, but then he got in trouble because he was talking about race theories and racial supremacy or something like that. But I remember the new atheists. I remember I was in college and I was walking through my dorm room and somebody had C-SPAN on. And then there was another British new atheist, Why do you think Hitchens became a neocon? That's a good question. There was another British new atheist who was on the TV, right? There was another British new atheist who was on the TV. It was Mr. Richard Dawkins. I am Richard Dawkins. The next book I'm going to write is going to be called The Top 101 Greatest Mistakes of Everyone Else. We are going to learn why only I am intelligent and all other human beings are stupid. That will be the topic of my next book. But I mean, it was quite a big deal. I mean, at the time, I remember it was quite a big deal at the time. Quite a big deal at the time. Incense and crystals. All right. Quite a big deal at the time, right? Obama had just been elected, if I remember correctly, or he was about to get elected. It was around the time that Obama was going to be elected president of the United States. Bush was on his way out. And so the ruling class of the United States, one faction in the ruling class, decided that the neoconservatives had gotten out of control. And the biggest foot soldiers of the neoconservatives in the United States were the evangelical Christian right? They were the foot soldiers of George W. Bush. And the reason that they had gotten out of control, I now realize this is all, that's one of the great things about Marxism, is with Marxism, you have an understanding of the economic base. You understand the material forces driving these things. So you have to remember, George W. Bush was the president of the United States. 9/11 happened. And after 9/11, George W. Bush invaded Iraq. And let me just talk about that for a moment. Because I deserve a medal, and every American who opposed the invasion of Iraq deserves a medal, because now everyone realizes what utter bullshit the invasion of Iraq was. It was bullshit. There were no weapons of mass destruction. Iraq, Ba'athist Arab socialism, secular government, had nothing to do with Osama bin Laden, the Islamic fundamentalist, Wahhabi from Saudi Arabia. Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11. Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction. The United Nations Security Council said they couldn't do it, right? NATO wouldn't even do it with the United States. But, Colin Powell showed up at the UN and held up some vial of powder and was like, oh, weapons of mass destruction. And so the USA invaded an independent sovereign country with no justification whatsoever. Shock and awe, destroyed the country. I mean, bombed the country to hell. It was a crime against humanity. And there were some of us at the time who were smart enough to not go along with it. And there were a lot of people who just said, well, the government, the media says, blah, blah, blah. And they just went along with it. And those of us who were right, those of us who were right deserve credit, right? But anyway, the USA invaded Iraq. These are all good questions people are asking. Wow. All I have to do to get people to really start asking me good questions for the second half of the show is start speaking in funny accents, right? Start speaking in funny accents, and then people start asking good questions. These are all great questions. Keep them coming, folks. This is going to be a great show. But anyway, George W. Bush invaded Iraq. And you have to remember also that they had spent a decade weakening Iraq with sanctions. Iraq, prior to the Gulf War, Iraq had been, quite a prosperous country in the Middle East. The Ba'ath government had built up a lot of, state-run industries and done a lot to raise living standards. And actually, Iraq, had been quite a prosperous country prior to the Gulf War. But the Gulf War happened. And then after the Gulf War, the United States started imposing horrendous sanctions, on the country. And those sanctions were genocidal. They were utterly genocidal sanctions. And, these sanctions killed lots of innocent people. And I mean, it was awful. They wouldn't allow Iraq to have chlorine to treat their water system. And Ramsey Clark, who I used to work for, former U.S. Attorney General, he violated those sanctions, and he made a big show of doing it. He went to the airport and he had a press conference, and he had stacks of medicine and stacks of all kinds of things. And he had a press conference and he said, I am flying all of this to Iraq. I am violating the U.S. sanctions. Please arrest me. He went out of his way. Ramsey Clark went out of his way to violate the sanctions. Members of the United Nations Security Council and UN employees resigned in protest of these horrendous sanctions. I mean, it was like 500,000 children under the age of 12 died because they couldn't get medicine, that the United States wouldn't allow medicine into Iraq. It was utterly horrendous what was done to Iraq. It was genocidal. I mean, it was mass murder. I mean, can you imagine 500,000 children and in total about 1.2 million people dying because of the sanctions that were imposed on the country? They just waged economic warfare against Iraq for a decade, right? And after they did it, after 5 or 6 years, then they set up the oil for food program, and they were kind of allowing some medicine to get in, but it was too little too late. And it was awful what they did to Iraq. And so then finally, after 9/11, the USA had been wanting to destroy Iraq because it was an anti-imperialist stronghold in the Middle East, a funder of the Palestinians, etc. The USA went in and destroyed Iraq. Now, the destruction of Iraq, it had a number of interesting results. First things first, you have to remember that the Islamic Republic of Iran and Iraq are longtime enemies, right? Iraq, secular Arab nationalists, Baathists. The Iranians are largely not Arabs, they're Persians, right? There's an ethnic rivalry between Persians and Arabs that goes back many years. The Iranian revolution was an Islamic religious revolution, calling for a religious state and plurinational, right? It's not, it wasn't the Persian Republic of Iran. It's the it wasn't the Islamic Republic of Persia. It's the Islamic Republic of Iran. And in Iran, the national minorities, the Turkmen, the Arabs, the Kurds, the national minorities play a very important role. Racism is outlawed by the Islamic Constitution. So they're opposed to any form of Arab nationalism. Number one, they're not Arabs. And number two, they're opposed to nationalism. It's an Islamic government. Islam, in the name of Islam, all nationalities are kind of, dissolved. And it's a very religious government, right? It's the Ayatollah Khomeini, and now the Supreme Leader Khamenei, his successor, the Islamic Republic. So the Islamic Republic of Iran and Baathist Arab Socialist Iraq were like at odds with each other. However, right after 9/11, when Bush announced he wanted to invade Iraq, he also gave the infamous Axis of Evil speech. I don't know if people remember the Axis of Evil speech. And the Axis of Evil speech that Bush gave, he listed 3 countries: Iraq, Iran, and North Korea, right? Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. I was already going to say something about that. We'll talk about that. And, so after that, Iran hated Iraq. And so the fact that the United States was like being very, very hostile to Iraq, Iran was saying, okay, well, maybe America's not bad. They're going after our enemy. But then the USA invaded Iraq and blew Iraq to shreds. And then they put Iran next on the list. Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, was listed. Goodness. And Iran was listed. So Iran was under threat, but also Iraq was a major oil exporting country. And Iraq was a huge exporter of oil. And it was blown off the markets. To this day, Iraq's oil exports are roughly 10% of what they were when Saddam Hussein was leading Iraq. Their oil industry has been blown to bits. Iraq exports 10% of the oil it exported under Saddam Hussein. So when you have a major oil exporting country get blown to bits and suddenly not export oil, what does that result in? Supply and demand, right? If the amount of a commodity that's available goes down, the price goes up, right? The harder it is to get something, the more it costs. So the oil prices went up. And I don't know if people remember this, but after the invasion of Iraq, the oil prices went sky high. They were the highest in history, $120 a barrel at one point. It was huge. The oil prices were just massive. They were the highest they'd been in history at that point. And I remember everyone was confused because like the USA had just invaded Iraq and people were all saying, I thought we invaded Iraq to get their oil. I mean, we should have cheaper gas now. What's going on? That's not how it works. We didn't get their oil. We blew their oil to shreds. We blew it to bits. Iraq was blown to bits. A country that had been independent, had a socialist government, was selling oil on the international markets, had been blown to shreds, wasn't selling oil anymore. So the oil prices went up. And that was good for ExxonMobil and BP and Shell and Chevron. It was great for them, great for the oil companies. But it was also good for Iran. And why was it good for Iran? Because Iran is also a major oil exporting country. And Iran, it has a big market sector, but the market doesn't control the oil. Who controls the oil in Iran? In Iran, the oil is controlled by the government, by the Islamic Republic. And so if you combine the fact that the oil prices were up, so the government suddenly had more money in Iran, and you also combine the fact that the USA called them the Axis of Evil, that's where we got Ahmadinejad from. Ahmadinejad was a hardliner. He was a revolutionary anti-imperialist. He was somebody who was not a reformist who wanted to water down the goals of the Islamic Revolution. He wanted to reinforce the anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist teachings of the Islamic Revolution. He said that like Fidel Castro is a great Muslim, and he condemned capitalism in his speeches before the UN. Ahmadinejad was a revolutionary, and the hardliner faction in Iran got stronger. Also, Latin America. Venezuela has this leader named Hugo Chavez. Venezuela's got lots of oil. Hugo Chavez is like an anti-imperialist leader. Well, Bush drives the oil prices up. He drives the oil prices through the roof. And as a result, Venezuela suddenly has more money. And with that money, they start building a socialist economy. And they build new universities and new schools, and they wipe out illiteracy. And Venezuela suddenly they're expanding the Bolivarian socialist project. Then Bolivia, 2006, Bolivia, Evo Morales gets in, and the Sandinistas get back in Nicaragua. And with that oil money, Bolivarian socialism starts spreading through Latin America. What else? Russia, right? The way Putin fixed Russia's economy is he made it an oil and gas-centered economy. He wrote his academic thesis about how Gazprom and Rosneft two state-controlled energy companies. How they, Jim Garrison digs my truth-telling. Well, right back at you, Jim. Right back at you. Putin fixed Russia's economy by creating Gazprom and Rosneft, two state-controlled energy companies, and using them to kind of reboot Russia's economy with these state-controlled energy companies. So suddenly, the price of oil it goes through the roof. So Russia has way more money, and Putin is suddenly rebuilding, and Russia's industrial capacity goes back to what it was at the time of the fall of the Soviet Union. They finally have recovered from the fall of the Soviet Union. It's a huge step forward. So Russia is back in business thanks to Bush invading Iraq. Bolivarian socialism is spreading throughout South America thanks to Bush invading Iraq. Iran, the hardliners and the revolutionary anti-imperialist faction in Iran are back in power thanks to Bush invading Iraq. Meanwhile, George W. Bush and his cronies or whatever, they're building up these evangelical Christians. That's who their foot soldiers are. Those evangelical Christians hate Muslims. They speak very hatefully of Muslims. And in the Middle East, a lot of the allies of the United States are Muslims. You'll notice, like after 9/11, there are all these, ABC News, all of these TV networks were doing specials about how Islam is a peaceful religion. Islam, why were they doing that? Because all across the Middle East, the Saudis, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Turkey, all these Muslim countries are allies of the United States. And the evangelical Christians that are running the U.S. military, like the General Boykin, I believe there was a general in the U.S. military, General Boykin, who said, who was like an evangelical Christian. He said, we won in Iraq because our God is stronger than their God, etc. The evangelical Christians, they're being really anti-Islamic. And you get some of these preachers that are like burning Qurans and putting Qurans in toilets. I think they put a Quran in a toilet in Guantanamo Bay. And, they were doing all kinds of very anti-Islamic stuff. So the USA, it can't go to the Muslim Brotherhood. It had been using the Muslim Brotherhood to fight Assad in Syria. The Muslim Brotherhood is like, up yours. We're not going to work with you, right? The USA has been using the Muslim Brotherhood to fight Gaddafi. Well, the Muslim Brotherhood in Libya, they're not going to work with the United States. And so all this anti-Islamic sentiment was alienating all these allies of the United States. The USA has been working with radical Muslim extremists since the 1970s. They've been working with them to fight against communism, to fight against Arab socialism and anti-imperialism, right? And they're alienating all of them. And George W. Bush, at one point, he even slipped and called it a crusade. I don't know if people remember this. He was on television calling the fight against terror. He's like, we're waging a crusade. It's like, whoopsie daisy. That's some language you don't want to use if you're trying to get Muslims to work for you. So all of this is happening. Meanwhile, Hurricane Katrina. I don't know if you remember Hurricane Katrina, right? Hurricane Katrina happened, and, it was genocidal what was done. Low-income Black folks were left on their rooftops to die. It was, they rounded up all these low-income Black people in New Orleans in the aftermath of the hurricane and just like kept them in this stadium. And they were like held prisoner without food and water in this Superdome. And it was awful what happened in New Orleans. I mean, people were looking on at what happened in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina 2005. It was genocidal what they were doing to Black people. They set up like a mini concentration camp in this stadium. You can read about it. It was utterly horrendous and it was horrible. So the Black community is mad at Bush at home. And, the rage against police brutality has been there among the Black community. There's going to be some kind of rebellion among the Black community. Meanwhile, internationally, Muslims are really angry at Bush because he's calling it a crusade. Meanwhile, all of the anti-imperialist governments, Venezuela, Iran, Russia, they all have way more money. And then the tip of the iceberg, I don't know if people remember this, is Israel invaded Lebanon. Do you remember this? 2006, Israel invaded Lebanon, right? Lebanon, it's a country, and it's got like a different governments. There's Christians there, there's Muslims there or whatever, but there's Hezbollah is this Shia Muslim religious anti-imperialist group that has a lot of power in Lebanon, right? And they are, they're very powerful. They're like a community organization. They have a lot of strength. They are like half the seats in the government. Hezbollah is this really powerful group in Lebanon. That's Shia Muslim anti-imperialists, very supportive of Iran, very tied to Iran. So Israel invaded Lebanon, and Hezbollah, which is this Shia Muslim anti-imperialist group, they kicked Israel's ass. They just wiped the floor with Israel. I mean, the Israeli army ran out of Lebanon with their tail between their legs, so to speak. Like it was a catastrophic defeat for Israel. Israel went into Lebanon, and Hezbollah kicked them the hell out of Lebanon. And it was an epic ass kicking. Like Israel got driven the hell out of Lebanon. And in the Middle East, all the Muslim folks in the Middle East, they all hate Israel. Israel is like enemy number one, no matter where you go. Saudi Arabia, they collaborate with Israel, but on their television, they hate Israel, right? Egypt, they were collaborating with Israel, but on their television, oh, we hate Israel. You know, in the Middle East, like Israel is just considered the worst, right? You know, the public there, they support. So Hezbollah just destroyed Israel. So this is a group that's tied to Iran, this revolutionary Shia Muslim group. And the whole Muslim world, and really the whole world, really, everyone who hates Israel was cheering for Hezbollah. And Hezbollah just defeated Israel. So that was the moment when Bush went down in flames. And the imperialists were sitting there and going, oh my God, because what George W. Bush had done, it made sense for the imperialists, but it had unforeseen consequences, right? It's like the butterfly effect, right? You know, it's like, you know, someone goes back in time and they step on a butterfly. It's a famous short story. They go back in time, they step on a butterfly, and then the butterfly, like they go back to the world, and then there's like an election result is different because of it, right? That you never know. And so when Bush invaded Iraq after 9/11, and Bush had all the evangelical Christians backing him and all of that, he was able to do a lot. He accomplished a lot for the U.S. imperialists. He invaded Afghanistan. He invaded Iraq. He passed all kinds of sweeping, repressive legislation. They still haven't undone, the Patriot Act, the spying, the torture. They still haven't undone any of that, right? He was able to do a lot of stuff, but it extrapolated. It had unforeseen consequences. And as a result, Russia got stronger. Bolivarian socialism in Latin America got stronger. Iran got stronger. The Muslim world, the collaborators with U.S. imperialism in the Muslim world were very alienated from the United States. And then the icing on the cake was an Iran-aligned militia kicked Israel's ass and became like the hero of the Muslim world. The whole Muslim world was cheering for Iran. And so that's why in my dorm room in college, I remember walking through my dorm room and seeing, my name is Richard Dawkins, and I don't think that God exists. God is a figment of our imagination. It's possible that he could exist, but it's highly unlikely. I'm Richard Dawkins. That's why Richard Dawkins was on my TV screen, because the U.S. imperialists, the Wall Street monopolists, the Pentagon strategists were sitting there and saying, God damn it, we got to get stuff under control. And they realized that the evangelical Christian right, the Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson crowd, they had so much influence and power that they were doing things that were hurting the interests of American imperialism. They were making Iran stronger. They were making Bolivarian socialism stronger. I don't know if you remember this, but Pat Robertson, he was an evangelical guy. He had that show, The 700 Club. He was on, I remember this. This is a great example of what I'm talking about. Pat Robertson, he was on The 700 Club, and he was on there, and they were reading him the news stories. And they said, Hugo Chavez, the president of Venezuela, says that Hugo Chavez, the president of Venezuela, says the United States is trying to assassinate him. And Pat Robertson said, well, he says we're trying to assassinate him, we really ought to just go ahead and do it. I think he's a Muslim terrorist, that Hugo Chavez. He says on national TV that we should, the USA, and the USA was trying to kill Hugo Chavez, right? And you can imagine that, like, there's Pentagon CIA guys that are running the operation to kill Hugo Chavez, while the USA is like, no, we never want to intervene in Venezuelan politics. And then Pat Robertson's like, yeah, we ought to just kill him. We ought to just kill him. I don't know. Why do we don't just go ahead and do it? Why don't we kill the foreign head? And he says it on TV, and those guys are just like, shut up, Pat, shut up. The religious right just had too much power, right? And so the ruling class of the United States, decided that in their economic interest, in order to continue to push the agenda of stabilizing capitalism, it was in their interest to give the American evangelical Christian right a punch in the mouth. And they did. And they gave them a really hard punch in the mouth. Richard Dawkins was everywhere. I'm an atheist. The Bible is not true, and Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. And I did that impression for like the first 20 minutes. So you'll hear it later. Don't worry. Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris. And it was a punch in the mouth to the evangelical Christian right. And the New York Times was like leading this, was like blazing trail with this, right? Was like blazing trail with this. And they just started trying to weaken the power of the evangelical Christian right. And there were a lot of things that happened. You could tell it was in the culture. Hollywood was pushing this. They all of them. You know what I mean? I mean, it was the United States apparatus was saying, all right, these they can exist, but they can't have as much power as they have. The movie V for Vendetta came out. I don't know if you ever saw V for Vendetta. V for Vendetta came out, which is this sci-fi movie about like this dystopian, police state where they're arresting homosexuals and they're arresting Muslims and it's about calling for people to revolt. I remember seeing that movie and just being so pumped up and fired up and it was time for Bush to go, right? It was time for Bush to go, and Bush left office, widely hated. And who did they replace George W. Bush with? They replaced him with Barack Hussein Obama. And Barack Hussein Obama was about trying to pick up all the pieces, basically, from the results, the unintended consequences of the Bush administration. But really, what was most important was right as Barack Obama was taking office, the financial crash happened. The U.S. economy just plummeted, right? And that's really important to understand because it was going to happen, right? You remember in the lead up to the U.S. invasion of Iraq, George W. Bush, he was on national television and they asked him, Mr. President, what can Americans do if they want to help the country? If you want to defeat the terrorists, you must go shopping. We must go shopping. I'm George W. Bush, Commander-in-Chief. Go shopping to defeat Al-Qaeda. To defeat Al-Qaeda, you must go shopping. What the hell was he talking about? He was talking about the fact that Alan Greenspan was in the Federal Reserve saying Americans aren't spending anymore. Americans were not spending anymore. The U.S. public didn't have the ability to keep buying shit the way they used to. Why? Because living standards across the United States were dropping. The good paying jobs were gone. The Rust Belt states, living standards were dropping. The rate of household debt was through the roof. Americans just could not keep spending the way they once had. Wages had gone down. The cost of living had gone up. Americans just couldn't afford to keep buying things the way they once had. And so Bush was right before 9/11, right after 9/11, he's urging Americans to go shopping because he's urging them to, that's what he needs them to keep buying things. Meanwhile, Alan Greenspan is like pulling out, they're deregulating everything, right? Every lending practice that had previously been illegal was being legalized, right? There's all kinds of money lending practices that are illegal that were legalized. Like one of them, I don't know if people remember this, but this was mortgage lending, right? Is that you would take out a second mortgage on your house, right? You're a family, you own your home. You need some extra cash, so you take out a second mortgage on your house, right? Okay, fine, right? And for the first 2 years, you're just paying every month. You're just paying the same amount of money. And then when you enter the third year, all of a sudden your payments balloon through the roof. And suddenly you owe three times what you've been paying every month. And if you're a working class family and your bill, your mortgage payment goes from what, $1,000 a month to $3,000 a month, you're fucked. You can't do that. You're screwed. They would balloon the payments. That's illegal. You can't do that, right? And when you lend money in the United States, the payments have to be consistent. They can't balloon after 3 years. Well, Alan Greenspan said, we got to keep Americans spending. So we got to have got to keep them lending them money. So what can we do? I know, we'll legalize the balloon payment thing. So a lot of Americans were losing their homes, right? Because of these predatory lending practices that had been completely illegal before. They were pulling out all the stops. And I remember, it's crazy. I mean, it used to be so easy to get a credit card. Now it's not so easy, right? It used to be so easy to get a loan from a bank. Now it's not so easy, right? Because they've passed all kinds of, laws now. But Alan Greenspan had just been pulling out every regulation on the lending of money. He just pulled it out. They were just doing everything they could to keep Americans spending money and to keep banks lending money to Americans to keep them spending, right? I don't know who that is. Who is this? I don't know who that is. You have to give me more information. I don't know who that is. And I was in Detroit that summer, and I was doing a work around predatory lending, and I was walking through whole neighborhoods that were just completely empty. All the homes foreclosed. I mean, it was a nightmare what they did to Detroit. And so the economy crashed, and Barack Obama was president. And look, we just need to be real about what happened here, okay? We just need to be real about it. We just need to be real. We just need to be real about this. We just need to be real about it. We just need to be real. Hold on. We just need to be real about it. The left, the socialist and communist movement in the United States, after the U.S. financial crisis, after Barack Obama got elected, there was a big section of the ruling class that went to the communist groups. They went to the Communist Party. They went to the Workers' World Party. They went to the PSL. They went to the PSL. They went to the different groups. And they basically said, go get them, Tiger. Go get them, Tiger. Do your thing, communists and socialists. I was there. I saw this with my own eyes. Like, they were basically saying to the communist groups, go do your thing. There was an interview that was given by, what's his name? Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett, who's this billionaire, he gave this interview about why it's crazy that he pays a lower tax rate than his secretary. Tax me more. And there was a big section of the ruling class, the ultra rich, that were saying they wanted to have, strict financial regulations to try and stabilize the economy. They realized that the financial crisis was extreme. They wanted to stabilize the economy, and they wanted Barack Obama to come in there and regulate the lending of money and banking, pass some healthcare reform. They wanted Barack Obama to implement some reforms to stabilize capitalism. And so they basically went to the communist and leftist groups and said, go get them. I mean, the movie Capitalism, A Love Story, this anti-capitalist movie that has members of the Workers' World Party in it, right? Like there's members of the Workers' World Party and the Communist Party that are in it as talking heads. I know this is for a fact, you know what I mean? That, and it's just like this full-on anti-capitalist-y, almost communist movie by Michael Moore is released. It's all over the theaters. The front page of Newsweek magazine says we're all socialists now. And the Workers' World Party, we called a march on Wall Street, as the Bail Out the People March. And Michael Moore promoted it on his website and sent it out to all of his followers. And Glenn Beck was, the ruling class was basically telling the communists in the United States, for their own reasons, go out and do your thing. Go out and do your thing. There was no danger of any of these groups ever recruiting a huge section of the population. There was no danger of any of these communist groups ever overthrowing capitalism or anything like that. But they wanted some street heat. You know what I mean? They wanted there to be some activism to give energy to Barack Obama to pass some of the reforms. And the right wing had their street heat, which was the Tea Party. They fomented the Tea Party, and the Tea Party was trying to stop Barack Obama's reforms. They said that Obamacare was communism, etc. You know, that's what they were doing. So the communist groups were getting like a wink and a nudge from the ruling class. And, you know, I mean, you know, Michael Moore, you know, that movie Capitalism, a Love Story, I believe Richard Wolff wrote a lot of it, if I'm not mistaken. He's in the credits. He worked on that movie. You know, he did a lot to make that film happen. And, you know, they were doing everything to let the left just be the left. And the left completely fell on their face. And this is what no one wants to talk about. I was there and I saw it. The ruling class had already, with their FBI and all that, determined none of these communist groups are a threat. PSL is not a threat to the status quo of the American government. It's not a threat to the American government at all. Right? The Workers' World Party, the Revolutionary Communist Party, they're not going to do anything. But even the ruling class was shocked at how irrelevant and ineffective the communist groups were. They couldn't do shit. They couldn't do shit. The communist groups couldn't do shit. And I was there and I watched this. They had the first U.S. Social Forum in Georgia. They had the second U.S. Social Forum in Detroit, 2010. And, you know, there was the Bailout the People March. And then there was like a factory occupation, the Republic Window and Door Makers strike in Chicago. And then there was like, what was it? There was like in Pittsburgh, some bankers had a meeting. And so there was like an encampment protest against the bankers in Pittsburgh. But the communist groups couldn't do shit. And it was sad. It was sad. The communist groups were so old and so decaying and so stuck in a rut, so stuck in a routine. They've been operating the same way since 1972. And the communist groups, the ruling class, they knew they were weak. You know, they knew they were weak. They knew they were not in any way a threat to American capitalism, but they just, you know, the Barack Obama wing of the ruling class just kind of wanted to have some oomph so they could like pass some regulations. And the communist groups were so lame and pathetic, they couldn't even do that. And that should have been a moment. That should have been a wake-up call that the left is dead. The left is dead. And the ruling class kind of realized the left is dead at that point. That, you know, what they used to do in their Bonapartist fights is the liberal bourgeoisie used the communists and the right-wing bourgeoisie used the fascists. And in that moment, the ruling class just said, yeah, there's no danger here. And so then Occupy Wall Street. And John, you're ahead of me. You're already talking about Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street emerged, and I saw this. Like, I was there at the first General Assembly, and there's video of me giving a speech, class against class. It's in a bunch of documentaries. I was at the planning meetings of Occupy Wall Street in Tompkins Square Park and other places. And Occupy Wall Street, it was David Graeber, and it was a lot of people from the color revolution apparatus, the CIA's color revolution apparatus, people who'd been in Otpor in Yugoslavia trying to overthrow, you know, socialism and people that and they brought in like professional CIA color revolution people because they couldn't get the communist groups to do it on their own. Like the American ruling class had to find their own revolutionaries. They're like, oh shit, we can't even, like, we're given funding, we're given money. The communist groups were so pathetic. So that then they brought in the Otpor people. They brought in people. Occupy Wall Street was largely, it was like after the communist groups had proved they were completely incapable of really putting forward any kind of anti-capitalism or populist anything. Then, you know, Occupy Wall Street emerged to fill the void. And I was part of Occupy Wall Street. I was arrested at Occupy Wall Street. I was in the park a lot. I was at a lot of protests. I had long hair and a beard back then. I'm in a lot of videos from Occupy Wall Street. And I started working in international media and, you know, appearing as an analyst during Occupy Wall Street as like a media spokesperson for the International Action Center. I was their Occupy Wall Street guy. And I appeared on Press TV and RT and Turkish TV and other networks. But I'll be honest with you, Occupy Wall Street was the result of the communist groups in America being completely incompetent. The ruling class had to basically organize their own movement. And they did Occupy Wall Street for a little bit, and it kind of gave voice to like the vague anti-capitalist sentiments that were like echoing around, right? We are the 99%, right? The 1% versus the 99%. And then Occupy Wall Street, it was over. I mean, it was over. It was done. It was a made for social media uprising. And then after that, you got Black Lives Matter, right? Black Lives Matter was the left's second coming, right? It was the next coming of the left, right? And I remember that. This was all very, very definitive in my political development. I guess that's why I'm talking about it, right? It started with me doing my Christopher Hitchens impression, but I'm trying to tell you how I pieced things together because I was very confused. I was in a communist organization and I was intensely, all these years, I was living this, right? I was living in Cleveland and getting arrested in police brutality protests and going to court with police brutality victims. And then I was in New York City and I was part of Occupy Wall Street and I was a media spokesperson for the International Action Center during Occupy Wall Street. And I was piecing all of this together and I was trying to figure out why isn't this working? What is going on here? And I was intensely studying all these books behind me. I was reading William Z. Foster and I was reading, Lenin. I used to have the complete works of Lenin. And I would just take one volume of the complete works of Lenin. There was a friend of mine. He said, if you really want to think like a communist, get the complete, and you've got a copy of the complete works of Lenin, just grab a random volume every so often and take it with you on the train to work. And so I worked at the insurance company and I would grab a random volume of Lenin. And I would read the different articles, the different letters and articles in like a random volume of the complete works of Lenin because I was trying to understand Marxism more than anything. And I was intensely studying this stuff and I was keeping journals and I just kept sitting there. Why is this organization not growing? Why are we not seeing what we need to see? And then I started traveling and that's when things got interesting. And I started going to Iran and I went to Venezuela. And I went to Russia, and that's when things started getting interesting. That's when things started getting interesting. That's when stuff started getting interesting. And I was going around the world and I was seeing that there is, there's Bolivarian socialism. It's a very vibrant revolutionary movement. And I was going to Iran and seeing the Islamic young people and the hardliners and the revolutionaries. And I was going to communist youth festivals and meeting young communists from around the world and talking to them. And my worldview started changing very, very quick. I gave a great speech in Brazil. That's correct, Alex. I was invited to Brazil in 2016. I gave a speech, Oil and the Global Capitalist Crisis. And I was sitting there going, shit ain't working, History of the Troubles and Your View of Irish Reunification. And I was going, look, we gotta change in order to win. That's really the development of my politics. It happened over the course of this time, right? You can go from the Bush administration all the way through the financial meltdown, Occupy Wall Street, the war in Syria, Obama, and when I appeared on CNN in 2013, I appeared on CNN, opposing. Let's show it. Just for fun, right? What the heck, right? Maybe this is narcissistic of me to show my own CNN appearance, but what the hell not? Why the hell not, right? Right? Just for good time's sakes, just to prove to you I'm not bullshitting you. I will show you. This is the only time that I've ever been allowed on CNN. The only time I've ever been invited on CNN. I have been on CNN, right? It's so funny. right? No one ever baits me for being on CNN, right? People say, well, Caleb, you spoke at a conference in Iran, and 2 years before that, that conference had a Holocaust denier. Well, I also appeared on CNN, and CNN has regularly featured interviews with David Duke, a Holocaust denier. So no one ever baits me for going on CNN. They never say Caleb went on Holocaust denier platforming network CNN, because they're CNN, right? It doesn't apply to mainstream media. It only applies to dissidents, right? Cancel culture doesn't apply to like mainstream media, right? CNN can interview David Duke, and then you can talk to CNN because they're CNN. They're the mainstream. It's like, why wouldn't you talk to CNN? They're CNN. But there you go. I believe it was September 6th, 2013, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I'm downloading the file now. It was my one and only appearance on CNN. I'll show it to you. And I appeared on CNN, and I was brought on. It was a totally random decision, but they walked over to the protest, and they said, we would like someone to come on CNN to talk about why you all are protesting against war in Syria. That was what they were talking about. And so just completely randomly, I ended up on CNN. Just completely randomly. And I mean, it's wild. I will tell you what it was like going on CNN. I will tell you what it was like, honestly. As soon as it downloads, I'll bring it on the screen here. But it was wild. So I just walk over there, right? I just walk over to where they've got the camera. They asked you for my name. They put my name below me. And so I'm standing there, and they're introducing themselves. I'm talking to the reporter, and I'm talking to the camera guy, and they're telling me about, we got this talk show going on. And they're going to cut to me, and I'm going to say there's protesters out here who don't want the USA to bomb Syria. And like, let me just tell you this. They were expecting me to say peace and love, kumbaya. That's what they were expecting. And that's why they let me on CNN. They were just like, they're like, Caleb's going to get on there, and he looks, my hair was about the same length it is now, but it was kind of a hippie leftist demonstration. They're setting me up with the microphone, and they're expecting me to just say peace and love, kumbaya, money for jobs, not war. That's what they're expecting. That's why they were going to let me on there. They didn't expect me to say what I said. And you'll see what I said here in a minute. So they point the camera at me live on national TV. And you'll see what I said here in a minute. And I will do an impression. This is what the camera crew looked like while they were interviewing me. They're filming there, and they're just like, and I swear, the woman interviewing me with the microphone's like, and when the feed cut, usually I'd be like, okay, how was that? I didn't even think what I was saying was that radical. I just knew it was the truth and it needed to be said. But like the woman who was interviewing me, the reporter, she was just like, and the camera guy was like, and there was like another guy who had one of those booms, and he was just like, and like, I could swear all these guys, this whole crew from CNN, they were convinced they were going to be fired. They thought they were going to be fired because they let me talk the way I did on CNN. Like, I swear, and they thought they were going to be fired. And I realized at that moment, wow, like there are just certain things you are not allowed to say on CNN. And they didn't research who I was or anything like that. And they let me on air to say some things that are true, that are absolutely true, that you are not allowed to say on CNN. And I mean, it was weird. I've interviewed people I disagree with before, right? Now I'm on the other side of the camera. I do reporting. Never have I ever interviewed someone and been like, never. Right? Because it's just like, it just doesn't work that way. I work in alternative media. We allow plenty of views. I've interviewed people who like Bush. I've interviewed people who like the Republicans, the Democrats. I've interviewed people who say all kinds of stuff. I've never have I been in a situation where I interviewed somebody and I'm just like, oh my God. Oh my God. And these people were like, I don't know what happened to them. I think they still have their job. They kept their jobs at CNN, but they were literally scared they were going to lose their jobs because I said this on air. I almost felt bad. I feel kind of bad about it, but it's like I had a responsibility to tell the truth about what was happening at that time, what was going on and what was really happening in Syria. And so on national television, they asked me, I mean, and that's the thing. I didn't even think about what I was saying. I didn't think what I was saying was like going against the grain, was like going against the mainstream or anything like that. I just thought what I was saying was pretty basic. What I was saying was just what I understood to be the truth about Syria. And it was the truth about Syria. I wish this would download quicker. I know we're all anticipating here. It was the truth about Syria, but it's not allowed on CNN. It is definitely not allowed on CNN. I will show you what I said on CNN. So again, we're downloading, and it was a big moment, but like seeing the looks on their faces, that was big. But yeah, that was 2013 when it looked like we were on the brink of going to war with Syria, and then at the last minute, they cut a deal where Syria gave up its chemical weapons and joined the OPCW. And at that point, then they didn't bomb Syria. But it was like the U.S. government was on the brink of bombing Syria. What's interesting is Barack Obama says that his biggest regret as president was invading Libya without a clear plan. And his biggest success as president was in 2013 when he prevented, when he didn't go ahead and attack Syria, which is very, very interesting, I think. Right? Because it's like basically, we know the Libya thing, that Hillary Clinton pushed him into doing that. So, and that Hillary Clinton wanted him to attack Syria and he didn't. So it's like, best moment as president when I didn't listen to Hillary Clinton. Worst moment as president when I did listen to Hillary Clinton. That's amusing. But here we go. Finally. Wow. Talk about slow computers and all of that. Anyway, this is when I went on CNN. My only appearance on CNN, and they will never allow me back on CNN. September 7th, 2013.
So as Congress makes up its mind on whether to take military action against Syria, anti-war groups are getting ready to stage protests in Times Square today. Rosa Flores joining me live now from New York. So Rosa, tell us more about the protests unfolding there in New York.
Yeah, well, those protesters are making their way here to Times Square, and I'm actually here with one of the organizers, Caleb from the International Action Center. And I know that you guys are expecting dozens, if not hundreds, of people here. But first of all, explain to us kind of what is your mission? Why are you guys here?
The last thing we need right now is a new war against Syria. Right now, they're cutting food stamps, hospitals are closing, schools are being shut down. There's a budget crisis in this country. We do not need more money for a new war against Syria. Every one of the cruise missiles they would send would cost over $1 million. That could be teachers that could be hired. That could be hospitals that could be opening. But instead, it's blowing up and killing people in another country, and that's not right.
Now, let me ask you about the support that you're getting, because from what I understand, lots of organizations are coming out of the woodwork and asking to be involved. Tell us a little bit about the involvement of other organizations that perhaps would not be, in this case, participating in something like this.
Well, 89% of the U.S. public is opposed to this war. People in this country overwhelmingly oppose an attack on Syria. But that won't mean anything unless people do something about it. If people aren't in the streets and organizing and demonstrating and making clear to the government that they will not let this war pass, that won't mean anything, because we've seen so many times the government not listen to the people and go to war. I don't believe what's coming out about this chemical weapons attack. I have a lot of questions about it. There are a lot of facts.
This is where they didn't want me to go, mind you. This is when it started getting interesting. I wasn't even answering her question. I was just saying what needed to be said.
Government not listen to the people and go to war. I don't believe what's coming out about this chemical weapons attack. I have a lot of questions about it. There are a lot of facts that just aren't adding up. And we've heard about weapons of mass destruction before. There's so many lies to take us into war. We don't need a new war. We need jobs, schools, education, and not a new war against the Syrian people. And these rebels that our government and our tax dollars are paying for, they're not good folks, and they're doing awful things there in Syria, and we should not be supporting these rebels in Syria.
Yeah, that's what I said. I talked about, one, how the chemical weapons allegations against Syria were bullshit, right? And I said the facts aren't there. They just don't add up. And two, I said that the rebels that are being backed by the American government in Syria are doing horrendous things. Those are two things you're not allowed to say on CNN. And I got them both in. I got two of those bombshells in right as the interview was ending. And yeah, Rosa Flores, her eyes were like, did he just say that? You know, like that. Rosa Flores didn't know what hit her. Right. And that will never be allowed on CNN ever again. I can guarantee you that. You know, but that was a definitive moment in my political development too, was the hands off Syria protests. Right. So, you know, where did the Center for Political Innovation come from? It came from the failure of the synthetic left. That's where it came from. It came from the failure of the synthetic left and the failure of the existing socialist and communist groups to get shit done. It came from understanding the material basis of resistance to U.S. imperialism and how it's not about ideology. It's about the economic foundations, right? It came from understanding and visiting the countries that have broken free from U.S. imperialism, Iran, Venezuela, other countries. It came from going to communist international gatherings. And really the final kicker, and I guess this is how I'll end. I'll end, this whole tirade by just saying this. The final kicker in creating the Center for Political Innovation was the Trump election. The 2016 election, Donald Trump was running for president and Bernie Sanders was also running for president. And the communists dropped the ball on both of those. They should have been going to the Bernie Sanders rallies and winning the people there to real socialism. They weren't doing that. And they should have been going to the Donald Trump rallies and winning the people there to real socialism, and they weren't doing that. They tailed Bernie Sanders. They just applauded for it. And they joined the liberal mobilizations against Donald Trump. Both of those were not correct. Many Americans were voting for Donald Trump because he said he was opposed to the wars. Many Americans were voting for Donald Trump because he seemed anti-establishment and he was questioning U.S. foreign policy. And all the communist groups just gave nothing but a middle finger to Trump voters. It was disgusting. There was not a single effort to try and understand why these people voted for Trump, to try and win them to see that Trump, no. It was these people are evil. They're all Nazis. They all deserve to die. They all deserve to be killed. That was their attitude. And when it came to the Bernie Sanders movement, there was no effort to win the Bernie Sanders supporters to real socialism and try to win them to be anti-imperialist. It was just tailism, just, movement is, it was all these people for years. The communist groups have been saying, break with the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is rigged against the left, break with the Democratic Party. And here it blatantly happened. It blatantly happened. Millions of people voted for Bernie. And then at the convention, I was at the convention in Philadelphia. They were full of rage at the Democratic Party. They saw that it was rigged. They were ready to break with the Democratic Party. And the left just said, whatever. It's like, it's so weird. All the things, this is like the thing. It's like all the things that it gets me worked up. It gets me viscerally angry, right? It's like when you're like a socialist, right? When you're a socialist, right? All these years you're selling newspapers and you're talking to people. Somebody walked up to you and they said, all right, Caleb, why don't you imagine that the economy crashed, the U.S. economy crashed, and people were suddenly criticizing capitalism like never before. Would that be good? You'd say, yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be good that the people were losing their jobs and such, but it'd be good that people were questioning capitalism on a widespread scale. You said, all right, good. Now, Caleb, imagine that public opposition to wars and military interventions was suddenly through the roof. The overwhelming majority of Americans were against all the wars. Would that be good? Yeah, that would be tremendous. All right, now imagine that millions of Americans voted for a socialist candidate, a man who called himself a socialist, in the Democratic primary, and then it was proven that the Democratic primary was rigged against him. Would that be a good situation? And they were mad at the Democratic Party. They were leaving the Democratic. Yeah, that would be a great situation. Okay. All of those things happened. And the communist group still couldn't grow. Could you imagine this? How is this possible? Like this would have been like the ideal situation. If there was a real communist party in America, 2016 would have been the moment that they surged forward. But the communist groups in America are completely controlled by the FBI. They are completely irrelevant and impotent, and they have no power. And they were handed capitalism crashed and widespread opposition to capitalism, anti-war sentiment everywhere, opposition within the Democratic Party being crushed and reviewed. Everything that should have been the perfect storm for communist groups didn't happen. And it's because they're controlled by the FBI. And it's because they don't believe in communism. They believe in the synthetic left. They believe in cultural whatever. They believe they're not fighting capitalism. They're fighting straight white males. Oh my God, they're racist. That's what they're fighting. They're not fighting capitalism. They don't read William Z. Foster. They don't read Marx and Engels. They read Judith Butler. They read Bell Hooks. They read Marilyn Fry. They're not interested. They're not interested in communism. And so those of us who really do believe that the banks and the factories and the industries and the centers of economic power should be operated to serve public good and not the profits of a few, those of us who carry on the tradition of Eugene Debs and Gus Hall and William Z. Foster and Elizabeth Gurley Flynn and Huey Newton and, the new communist movement of the 1970s. And, those of us who carry this heritage, this blood within our ideological veins, those of us for whom this is our ideological heritage, we must break with the synthetic left. Out of the movement to the masses. 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 The left is dead. It is dead. The communist groups, the Communist Party USA, the PSL, the Party of Sellout Liberals, the weak party, the Workers' World Party, the Know Nothing Party, all of them, the Socialist Non-Alternative, they're all irrelevant. You have to break with the synthetic left, and you have to go out of your way to do things that they won't do, like wave the American flag, like quote the Bible and talk about Jesus being a socialist. You have to go out of your way to talk about class struggle and economics and not focus on the identity politics crap. You have to go out of your way to try and win over average Americans who don't like the left. That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. You got to get out of the movement to the masses. And the Center for Political Innovation is doing that. We are getting out of the movement to the masses. And that is why everybody is scared of us. We are living proof. We are living proof that you do not have to play by their rules. The Center for Political Innovation, we've never been more than a few hundred people. We've never been more than a few hundred people. Never. We're not a huge political force. We're not a party. We're just a think tank. And I was working on, helping somebody. We're having a conference coming up, and somebody's been working on an organizational report. And I was just going over everything that we have done. And it's like, how is this possible? We have barely any money, barely any resources, not very many members. And what have we done? We had a huge conference in Austin, a conference that was so big in Austin that trutherfiction.com had to do a fact check about it. That's how important it was. Jackson Hinkle was there. Haas was there. Peter Coffin was there. Standing room only in Austin, Texas. Our conference was packed. It was huge, right? And our conference in Austin, it was like a really big deal. So we did that. Then a couple months later, we had a national training school. I don't know if you remember this. We had a national training school in Lynn Valley, Kansas. We had a national training school. A few months before that, we sent a delegation to be election monitors in Nicaragua. We had a national training school in Lynn Valley, Kansas that was well attended. It was like 4 days of intense training. And then after that, we had a conference in Chicago. And that conference was such a big deal that Newsweek magazine had to do a story about it. I don't know if you saw this. Newsweek magazine did a story about it. They interviewed me and they interviewed Tara Reid. And we hosted Tara Reid, and Newsweek magazine had to do a story about us. So, it's like we're this tiny group, but we're leading delegations, to different countries, right? I think it was Bloomberg News did a hit piece about the fact that we had organized a delegation to go to Nicaragua to monitor the elections. We're organizing international delegations. We're having conferences that are raising alarm bells all across the country. We're having national training schools. We've published, how many books have we published? How many books have we published as the Center for Political Innovation? We have published the top-selling edition of the Green Book by Gaddafi. We have published a number of books. It's like, and we're not that big of a group, And it's like, if you look at all that we've done, all the conferences we've convened, all the interventions we've done, we protected the Nicaraguan foreign minister. He was, he had a speech and it was being disrupted by the right wing, and we ran the right wing out of the church. We actually had a protest in support of Alex Saab. Alex Saab was, is the Venezuelan diplomat who's been held by the U.S. government. And our protest was in Times Square, and it was mentioned by Nicolas Maduro in a speech. We had a protest that was mentioned by Nicolas Maduro in a speech. We're not that big of a group, right? And we had a protest that was mentioned by Maduro in a speech, and we had a conference that was in Newsweek, and we had a conference that was like fact-checked, and we published all kinds of books, and we've sent international delegations to monitor elections. And it's like, holy shit, we're not that big of a group. We're just a few, never more than a couple hundred people. Never more than a couple hundred people. And not that much money, honestly. Compared to the amount of money that certain groups have, we have barely any money. I mean, I get some funding here, get some funding there, but it's, we're just throwing it together. We've done a lot. We've done a massive amount, right? What we did, and it shows you that's why they hate us, because we're showing up and exposing all the phony socialist groups. They're all, imagine that there's a job where there's like 5 or 6 people who worked at this company, and they're lazy motherfuckers, and they have their feet up all the time and they never work. And so after about 50 years, the company hires a new guy, and that new guy comes in and starts working his butt off because he believes in what he does. Those guys are going to hate that guy. Oh my God, we've been lazy for years. We've been getting away with being lazy. And now this new guy just shows up and starts doing everything. That's us, right? We actually believe in this. It's not a fucking scam, right? PSL is a scam. Workers' World Party is a scam. The CPUSA is a scam, right? These organizations, they don't believe in communism. They're a money-making operation for boomers. That's what they are. It is a scam so that Brian Becker and Sarah Flounders and what's his name, Joe Sims, so they can keep collecting a paycheck, and they can be the king of this tiny little kingdom where they get to be the boss, and they get to collect the check, and the group gets smaller and smaller, and young people join, and after 1 or 2 years, they realize, oh, this isn't really going to grow, is it? This is not really meant to actually become a real political party, and so they move on, but some other young people come in the next year, and they get hustled in the same way. The communist groups are a scam, all right? That's what they are. They're a fucking scam at the end of the day. It is a mechanism for some boomers to make money. That's what they are. They don't actually want to grow. They don't actually want to recruit. They just want to give a paycheck to some placeholders, some lazy, complacent placeholders who stopped believing in communism about 50 years ago, but figured, hey, I'm at the top of this. I might as well keep collecting my check. The communist movement in the United States is a scam. CPI is not a scam. We actually believe in what we're doing. And because we actually believe in what we're doing with very little money and very little resources, we are putting all of these other groups to shame. We are putting these other groups to shame, right? And we're also showing that part of the way they keep themselves irrelevant is they have this list of outdated rules. One shall not wave an American flag. It is racist. One shall hate Christians. Christians are racist. It's like they've got this like political formula, how to stay irrelevant in America. All right. Most Americans like their country. All right. We must hate the country. Most Americans are religious of some degree. Christianity is the biggest religion. Oh, we must hate Christianity. You know, I mean, it's like, it's beyond me. It's beyond me. So they have these outdated rules. They say, oh, all we can do is just kind of, you know, stay on the margins of American politics, sell some newspapers. That's all we can do. Well, CPI ain't doing that. You know, I've got a full-time job as a reporter. But I've decided that I believe in communism, and everything I believe in is, I believe in communism. And so, you know, in addition to my full-time job, I am dedicated to building the Center for Political Innovation, and it drives these fools crazy because it's a real organization. It's not a scam. It's not a hustle, right? I take this seriously. I believe in what I'm doing, and it scares the hell out of these people. It scares the hell out of these people. And, you know, just like we've gotten way more done than any of these socialist groups, you know, we've also faced more vicious attacks, right? Socialist groups attack each other all the time. This group, oh, they're this, they're that. No, they hate us. Epithet reserved for the Center for Political Innovation. We're Nazis. How are we Nazis? I don't know. I don't know how we're Nazis, right? I mean, we're a multiracial organization. We're proud supporters of Russia, and we begin every meeting with an anti-fascist pledge. We have a picture of John Brown, the abolitionist, and Fred Hampton, the Black Panther, at the front of the room. I don't know how we're Nazis, but we are. No, it's just a fact, right? I mean, no, ask any of these people. When you join the PSL, one of the first things they tell you is Caleb is a Nazi, and his organization, they're all Nazis. We don't know why they're Nazis, but they're Nazis. You know what I mean? And it's Communist Party also. You know, Caleb is a Nazi. How am I a Nazi? Well, because he is a Nazi. It doesn't make any sense how I'm a Nazi. Nazis generally don't support Black nationalism and Black people fighting for their rights. Nazis generally don't, uphold anti-fascism and defend the Soviet Union and the legacy of heroic anti-fascist fighters. That's generally not what Nazis do. Nazis don't go around, leading anti-racist protests, etc. But, do facts matter? No, we're Nazis. We are Nazis because we are. Why? Because we are. Because we are. Because, and that's, we're Nazis. And they have gone after me on a personal level. You know what they've done to me. Vicious lies and smears. And, they've gone after me. But I'm still here. And they kind of overdid it, I think, because at this point, if I'm still here, there you go. But, we're still here and we're going strong. And we've got a conference coming up. We've got a conference coming up on March 25th and 26th. It's called the Summit Against Hypocrisy. The Summit Against Hypocrisy. And it's going to be awesome. And I really hope that you can be there. We need you to start registering for this conference, right? The Eventbrite is right here. We would really like it if people donated. We were going to do the conference, but, more money would make it go more smoothly. We got a lot of expenses to cover for the conference, but we'd just like you to just come. If you can't donate or whatever, you just want to come and attend. We'd love for you to be there. Jyoti Brar is coming from the Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist. I am so pumped. I love Jyoti Brar. I've been a huge Jyoti Brar fan for a long time. She's an amazing speaker, amazing anti-imperialist. She is coming in from the United Kingdom. We're working on a video for the website about Jyoti Brar coming to the conference. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be some other speakers, Garland Nixon, Nick Brana from the People's Party. It's going to be an awesome event. It's going to be a really, really awesome event. The Summit Against Hypocrisy. It is our pre-buttal to Joe Biden's Democracy Summit. And we need you there. And we also need your help. We need your help to promote this event, right? Because, we're working on that right now. Peter Coffin is coming. He's great. And he's actually going to be making like a documentary about the conference. That's going to be awesome, right? It's going to be really, really great. We're really excited about that. Peter Coffin is pumped and he's going to be there. He's going to be a speaker. And Fox Green, Space Commune, he's going to be there. And Daniel Villa from WBAI and Don DeBar from CPR Metro. He's going to be there. I mean, it's going to be an all-star conference. It looks like, there's a good chance Scott Ritter will be there. It's going to be awesome. It is going to be awesome. We are really, really pumped. We are really, really pumped about this conference. Daniel Burke from the Schiller Institute, he's coming. He's going to be giving some remarks. It's going to be an all-star conference. And you don't want to miss it. You really don't want to miss it. And it'll be 2 whole days, right? This isn't just an afternoon. Usually when we do a conference, it's like afternoon, evening. This is 2 whole days, right? 2 whole days of stuff, music and speeches, and it's going to be awesome. It is going to be an awesome 2 days in Washington, D.C. It is going to be awesome, but we need your help to promote this. If you can donate, that's great, but we really need your help promoting. If you can make a video promoting this event, if you can make a meme on social media promoting this event, do it, please. We need your help. Design a poster to promote this event. Talk about it, anything. We need this event to be big because Joe Biden's Democracy Summit is going to be such a shit show, dumping on all the anti-imperialist countries. We need you to promote this event. We need you to promote this event. We need your help. So if you haven't registered already, sign up. Please sign up and register for the event. We need you there, number 1. But number 2, we need your help promoting. We need your help promoting the Summit Against Hypocrisy. It's an anti-imperialist gathering. It is going to be really, really important. And while the Democracy Summit is happening, we are going to have these videos hit the web, right? So that while Joe Biden is doing his awful Democracy Summit and spreading pro-war lies, we are going to have the videos from the conference. We're going to have a talk about Cuba. We're going to have a talk about Venezuela. We're going to have a talk about Iran. We're going to have a talk about Russia. We're going to have a talk about China. We're going to have a talk about every country you ever heard of. We are going to make so much content at this conference. It is going to blow your mind. We are going to talk about, someone's going to talk about the Philippines. Someone's going to talk about the prison system in America. Someone's going to talk about the suppression of third parties in America. Someone's going to talk, we are going to produce so much content from this event. And then as the Democracy Summit is happening, we are going to hit the web with all of this beautiful content. And we are going to be the anti-imperialist response to Joe Biden's Summit of Hypocrisy. It is going to be so awesome and so important. And it's going to be, we got a whole team of people that are coming to D.C. There is going to be a team of people. They're called the March Brigades. They are going to be in D.C., right? They are going to be in D.C. They are going to be in D.C. promoting this, and it's going to be so important. So we need your help. We absolutely need your help. If there's ever been a time that I, Caleb, and the Center for Political Innovation have needed your help, it is now. We are back in business. You saw what we did February 19th, how we filled up that auditorium. Scott Ritter was there, and it was so amazing. We had this amazing event. We're heading back to D.C. at the end of March. We need your support. We need your help. Help us build the Summit Against Hypocrisy. Help us build it. It must be built. It must be built. We need your help. We need your help. We absolutely need your help. Donate if you can. If you can't donate, you can help us promote it, make a meme, do anything, right? Get people there. We need people at this Democracy Summit. It is going to be so vitally important. It's going to be so vitally important, right? Because we can give an answer to this. We can give an answer to this awful, awful imperialist gathering that Biden's going to do. We're going to solidify and build the bonds among our beautiful, growing anti-imperialist community. This is going to be so powerful. Right? People think about a conference they went to that changed their life, where they had an emotional, spiritual experience that made them what they are today. That's the kind of conference we're planning here. The music, the speeches, the content, the community, the sense of community that we're building. We're doing something really, really special here. We are doing something, nobody does conferences like we do. When I was in Chicago after our last conference, I walked out And I said to Justin, another guy who's in the CPI, I said to him, have you ever been to a socialist conference like this? And he said, Caleb, no, I haven't. The way we get that energy in the room, the way we get people pumped up, the way we talk about anti-imperialism, we have something amazing going on. Amazing going on, right? We're doing something so amazing. We need your help. We absolutely need your help. Jim Garrison said, what's your take on the sad coverage of the latest U.S. invasion and occupation? We're talking about Haiti. We need your help. We need your help. We need your help. I mean, there's just no way around it. We need your help. We need your help. We need your help. And you know, it's not easy to get all these people to DC. Not easy to get all these people to DC. It costs money to cover people's expenses. It, you know, costs resources to put on a conference, to fly Jyoti in from Britain, to bring speakers in, to, you know, make sure everything is what's needed, to put people up, to provide housing for people that are in from out of town, to rent hotels, to rent big speakers, to rent a soundboard, to get the video production so we can have the high quality videos we need. It's not easy. And we're scrambling to get it done. And my hat goes off to people like Elizabeth that are working really hard, people like Gavin that are working really hard, people like Jetta that are working really, really hard, people like Tyler that are working really, really hard. A lot of us are working really, really hard to get this done. We need your help. You know, we need your help. So if you can financially contribute, that's great. If you can help us promote, please help us promote this conference. Help us promote this conference. Help us build this conference, because it is going to be so important. It's going to be so vitally important. It's going to be so vitally important. And we're doing something with CPI no one else is doing. No one else is doing. No one else is doing. No, I don't. No, I don't. No. It's going to be so important. It's going to be so important. It's going to be so important. So I sign up if you can. Sign up if you can. Help us promote it. You know, we got this beautiful logo that was designed by Fox Green, you know, Summit Against Hypocrisy. We got this beautiful poster. Sign up now. Sign up now if you can, and help us build it. There's a donation button, you know, that you can donate. You know, here, I'll drop the donate link. It's a long, complicated link, but you want to just donate to help it happen, you can donate with this link I'm about to drop in the chat. We absolutely need your help. And everyone watching now can do something, right? You know, maybe you can't give a financial contribution. I know everyone's not in the situation to give a financial contribution. You can go promote it, right? You can go into every web forum and every place and you can promote it. You can take this link out right now and you can take this link out and you can promote it. You can promote it. That's what you can do, right? You can go and you can promote it. You can post this in various places. You can help us promote it. You know, that's one thing you can do. You can just come, you know, if you can't give a donation, but you just want to come, you just want to be there and sit in a seat, show up, you know, register to attend and show up, right? You know, we need you there and we'll put you to work. You'll be very helpful by being there. Just by being there, by engaging with the speakers, getting up, maybe asking a good question during the Q&A session. It'll be really important to have you there. So come, and if you can't come, help us promote. If you can't help us promote, help us, you know, give us a donation. We must build the Center for Political Innovation, and this conference must be a success. You know, this is a rare opportunity. They have tried to kill our organization, and we are proving to them every day that we are still alive and that their efforts to destroy us have utterly failed. We just had an amazing reception after Rage Against the War Machine, and we're about to have an amazing conference in Washington, D.C. So please, by all means, help us build this amazing conference. Come to D.C. and participate in it. Help us build it. Get it all over the internet. You know, call people up. If you know people in the D.C. area, call them up and get them there, right? Just find out everything you can do. Build. Make a video on your own YouTube channel encouraging people to come. That would be awesome if you can do that. If you have a personal YouTube channel, make a video, right? Make a video of your own and say, hi, my name is Steve. You know, I normally don't make videos, but I'm here to say, come to the conference in Washington, D.C., right? Just come to the conference. We need you there. Advertise, promote, build. This conference is important. There's nothing like this happening. There's nothing like this happening. I can just guarantee you that. There's just nothing like this, right? The way we do it at CPI, the feeling, the glow, the energy that comes out of our conference, the desire, the way we build things, the way we're thoroughly anti-imperialist, the way we're planning to basically give a strong pre-buttal to Joe Biden's summit of hypocrisy. No one's doing this. No one is doing what we are doing. And that's why what we're doing is so important. And you can be part of it in your own little way, or a big way, right? Where can we learn about your earlier plan to join? Where can we learn about your earlier? I don't know what that means. What does that mean, Catherine? Learn about your earlier plan to join. I don't even know what that means, but there you go. Just be there. Just be there. We need you there. We need you there. We need you there. So I think I said what needs to be said about that. Summit Against Hypocrisy. You'll be hearing a lot more about it as the details come together. So much is happening. Be there. Be there. We need you there. And on that note, names and locations, folks, names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Who is with us? Who is with us? Names and locations. Who's with us tonight? Gavin is in Z. How are things out there in Z, Gavin? Doing well? We got Arnie in Vegas, JT24 in Mississippi. Z must be in Western Illinois. I know what you meant, Gavin. I'm just being funny. Cleveland Pirate Alex, Nate in Chicago, Chris in San Diego, John Whitty in Houston, Jamie in St. Paul, Minnesota, Mike in Baltimore, Washington area, Kieran from San Diego, Chester in England, Alex from Brazil, Four Oaks from North Carolina, Christina in Portland, Balthazar in Oakland, St. David's, Bermuda, Juan in Quito, right? Bob Troy in New York, GGF in New York City, right? John McCarthy in Chicago. Shout out to John. He's great. He's done a lot of hard work. Patch in Arizona, Auckland, New Zealand, Brian Schaefer in Illinois, Tornado Alley. Lori, you're still here. Your battery is held out. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Abel Malcolm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Earth, good you're down to earth, V. Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Heidi in Edinburgh, Scotland. Maddie in California, right? Catherine is in Missouri. We have a lot of Missouri people here. That's cool. San Francisco, California. I like John McCarthy. Me too. I like John McCarthy a lot. Jane in New Zealand. Jane Frericks in New Zealand. Donnie Wallace in Sanford, North Carolina. Molly McGuire in Orange County, California. Who else is with us tonight? Names and locations. Richard Swacky's on the spot. On the spot. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. You know. But there you go. All right, folks. I guess we got a lot of super chats to get through. That's okay. We appreciate them. The first super chat is, why did Christopher Hitchens become a neoconservative? Why is it that Christopher Hitchens became a neoconservative? He was a Trotskyite at one point, but then he decided to become a neoconservative. Why did he do such a thing? Right, I'm Christopher Hitchens. Right, thank you, William. Now, why did Christopher Hitchens become a neoconservative? Well, my understanding is that he was repulsed by leftist support for the Iranian Revolution. That's my understanding. And that makes sense to me. Because the Iranian Revolution, the Islamic Revolution of Iran, was not a Marxist revolution. It was anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, but it was not Marxist. It's explicitly rejected Marxism. It was religious in nature. And on top of that, there was widespread condemnation of it in American media. The hostage crisis and all of that. Have you ever seen the movie Reds, starring Warren Beatty? The movie came out in like 1981, and the end of it is kind of a dig at leftists for supporting the Islamic Revolution. If you go see the movie, one of the final scenes where he's speaking to a crowd of Muslims and he's not happy with it. You know, it's kind of a dig at leftists for supporting the Islamic Revolution of Iran. My understanding is that Christopher Hitchens was a Trotskyist, so he was never really anti-imperialist. He was kind of he was like a third camp Trotskyite. And then when the Islamic Revolution of Iran happened, he didn't support the Islamic Revolution of Iran. He's like, these are all a bunch of very stupid religious people. Why would I, as a leftist, support them? I don't particularly care for them. They're a bunch of leftists. I just don't. I have no desire to support that. So he didn't support the Islamic Revolution of Iran. He didn't support the Islamic Revolution of Iran. And that started to be, his ticket away. The other thing is that I'll just say this, right? Christopher Hitchens was never an organizer. He was a quote unquote journalist. And there's plenty of these people that they have no desire to build an organization. They have no desire to be part of a movement. They just kind of want to be writers and commentators. And if they join a communist group, they're just there because it might help them get a book published or something. And we have way too much of that nowadays. I'll just tell you, I am really, really tired of these prima donna kind of people, right? I am a communist because I want to build an organization of communists. I want to be part of an organization. I don't know what it would look like to be a communist who's not in an organization. What would I be writing books about? If I was writing, people are like, oh, Caleb, don't be an activist. Don't be an activist. Just write books, give commentary. Why would I do that? Why would I do that if I wasn't trying to build an organization, if there was no ideology behind it? I was just like giving analysis or something. But there are a lot of people, though, that have no desire to build an organization, have no desire to actually build a mass movement to overthrow capitalism. They just kind of want to be smart, and they want to give interviews, and they want to like make videos, and they want to do journalism, to show how smart they are. They want to be smart on social media. And they're just so, oh my God, how's the light in my face? Do I look perfect? I just can't stand that. I really can't stand it because I'm trying to build an organization and it's not easy. And when people have no desire to be part of an organization, they just want to look at themselves in the mirror. Oh, look how cutting edge and sexy I am. That's my critique. I'll just be honest. That is my critique of the Rage Against the War Machine rally. Is that a lot of what I saw on the stage in the videos was not organizers. I didn't see organizers. I saw social media influencers who were using the crowd as a background for a video shoot. And, I didn't hear them talking about organizing. I didn't hear them talking about building a mass movement. I heard them, being divas. And it annoys me because I'm trying to build a real organization here. I'm trying to bring people together, and there's various people who got on that stage who aren't doing that. They're just busy being famous social media people. And, I guess it's better for them to be famous social media people that are anti-imperialist than not. So that's okay, I guess. But I'm trying to build an organization. That reception that we did it because we were trying to build an organization. It was about bringing people together, teaching them about our organization, building bonds between people. It wasn't just an opportunity for me to film a video of myself with an audience behind me, and that's what I saw at Rage Against the War Machine. Now, it was still a very important rally. I still am 100% glad we supported it. I'm glad that our name was on it. I'm glad we supported it. I'm glad our people were there. I'm glad we did a great reception afterwards. I love, and Nick Brana, that guy's a real organizer. I'll tell you that. No one is more dedicated to building and organizing. Nick Brana, that's a real organizer. There were people on the stage I really liked, right? But as I watched speech after speech, I kept thinking this is just like a live shoot. This is just like, and if people were like that, if they were just journalists or whatever, and they were just like, well, I'm a journalist, I'm this badass on social media, come look at me. If they were like that and not assholes, I wouldn't have as much of a problem. But some of them, on top of being, not activists and not organizers, they're assholes. I'm not going to say who, but some of them are assholes. And, and that's the thing. I'll endorse it because they're assholes, because I am trying to build an organization. If you think I'm an asshole, fine. You know what I mean? But like, I'll still work with people that annoy me because I want to get shit done. These people don't have that attitude. It's like, oh, this person I'm mad at over some personal stuff, they are listed as a speaker. Oh, this can't be. Grow up. Grow the fuck up. Seriously. Grow the fuck up. And there was so much of that. You guys have no idea. I'm not even going to name names or tell you anything, but the amount of text messages and shit I had to deal with in the lead up to February 19th. I wasn't even on the stage, mind you. I wasn't even speaking on the stage, right? Elizabeth spoke at the closing rally, did a great job, but I wasn't even on the stage, right? I wasn't even among the speakers. And the amount of, oh my God, this person has cooties. Oh my God, this person can't be there. This person can't be. Oh my God. These people, so many of these people that are just influencers. They're not part of a group. They're not part of an organization. They're just influencers. They are the most petty, juvenile divas I have ever seen. And it is so fucking annoying. And it wasn't just one person. It was a lot of them. And I had to deal with this shit. And it was so demoralizing to watch their little petty, I don't like this person. I don't like this person. This person's this person's that. Oh, this person, he's a jerk. Oh, shut up. Shut up. And the reason they're acting that way is they don't understand the importance of getting along with people. They're not trying to get along with anybody. They're just trying to be famous on social media. They just want the whole world to look at them and look how amazing they are, right? They don't need an alliance with anybody. They don't need to actually like build alliances and try to get things done. They just want everyone to look at them. Look how amazing we are. Look at me, and they're all just up there trying to look badass, and it's funny because it's like there are people who dumped on the rally, who made these critiques and didn't support the rally. And so those people should shut the fuck up. I supported the rally, and I would support it again if they did it the exact same way. I still have my critiques of these people acting this way. I would still support the rally. I would still pour a lot of money into a reception afterwards to give people food because it's what needs to be done. Because getting shit done in the real world means putting up with stuff you don't like. There was a lot about February 19th that I didn't like, but I put up with it because I'm trying to build an organization, because I'm trying to get shit done. That's the point. It's about getting shit done. That's the point. It's about getting shit done. That's what it's about. The point is to actually win and to get shit done. And if that means you have to deal with somebody you don't like, and that means you have to, oh my God, this person's on the stage, I can't be with this person. Shut up. Like, I'm so tired of it. You guys have no idea. I am not naming names, but there was about like 7 people that were on that stage that were having hissy fits about other people that were on that stage. And I wasn't even on the stage. So thank God I wasn't on the stage. People were having hissy fits about me already, but I wasn't even on the goddamn stage. You know what I mean? I wasn't even on the goddamn stage, and these people were having hissy fits about me. I mean, imagine if I'd been on the stage and the amount of hissy fits I had to hear about. Oh, I don't like this person. I don't like that person. Oh, this person. And they all just want to look sexy and get out there. Look at me. Look at me. And are they building an organization? No. Are they, trying to keep a group of people together? No. Are they, and they just, oh, I'm so great. I'm so badass. Look how special, amazing I am. It's just like, seriously, you know what I mean? Seriously. I will work with those people. And to some degree or other, I am one of those people. I'm not allowed. I've been locked out. I'm not allowed to be, one of the cool kids. For some reason, social media is rigged way more against me than it is these people. And I don't know what that's about, but whatever. I'm going to keep going. I'm building an organization. We're doing something different here. We're not trying to be sexy social media people. We're doing something different. But yeah, I'm on here streaming right now. No, this is not, there's a name that I keep seeing in the chat. This is not really about them, honestly. Like, that's a minor footnote. I'm talking about some stuff that you guys don't even know about. So please, it's not, I keep seeing what's going by in the chat. That's not what I'm talking about. That is actually not what I'm talking about. I've talked about that directly. We did a whole thing with Ryan's. That's not what I'm talking about. But, you know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just, you know, I mean, to some degree or other, you have to play with social media nowadays. Social media is a reality. It's around, but you got to build something more than social media. You got to build something more than social media. What the hell were we talking about? What were we talking about again? What were we talking about again? Like, we're talking about Christopher Hitchens? Okay, anyway, next question. Why are the Sock Dems making Marianne Williamson their racehorse? Are they going to be conservatives with incense and crystals? I don't even know. I don't even know. I mean, Marianne Williamson's been pretty pro-imperialist lately. I mean, doesn't she like Vosh? Hasn't she been talking to Vosh lately? And, you know, I liked some stuff about her when she was running for president. There were parts of her that I kind of found entertaining, but she's really taken a very negative turn lately. It's a little interesting, but, you know, that occultism, you know, that's historically, that's part of the right, not the left, right? You know, it's only really since the 60s that stuff's become left wing, but the occultism, and isn't she a big promoter of The Course in Miracles? Isn't that a book that she promotes, The Course in Miracles, right? Remember, that's like, she's just this kind of weird occultist who's been kind of on the margins of like liberal people for a while, and now people are looking for politics. So there you go. She must have gotten the seal of approval. There must have been somebody who said she's good to go. Please explain why NATO expansionism is an existential threat to Russia. Because NATO is an anti-Russian alliance. If there's ever a military confrontation with a NATO country, all countries have to get involved. You know, and because of that, you know, if the NATO alliance gets right up to Russia, you know, you've got countries on Russia's border that if they do anything to Russia and Russia responds, then Russia goes to war with the United States. You know, NATO is an anti-Soviet, anti-communist, anti-Russian alliance. I mean, that's what it is. And there was a promise that it wouldn't move any further east, and it, you know, it gets, you know, it gets worse. So yeah, there you go. Is the Christian right synthetic? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The Christian right, there's always been very, very religious people in America. That's a big part of our culture. There's always been, you know, Protestants that are very radical in the United States. We still have snake handling that's legal, you know, stuff like that. But what you can call the evangelical Christian right, which is very much the, you know, it's the megachurch movement. It's the non-denominational megachurch movement. Those folks, that is very synthetic, and that arose in the late 70s, and that was an adoption of the rock and roll aesthetics of the new left applied to right-wing conservatism. And I've given messages about, you know, there's a variety of influences on it, right? You know, you can talk about the influence of the Reverend Sun Myung Moon and the Unification Church. They were certainly an influence on it. They were then attacked by the U.S. state apparatus because of their ties to Park Chung-hee, and that's a whole nother story. But Reverend Moon was a big influence on what became the evangelical Christian right. There was also something called the, if I remember, Tony Alamo, that guy, you know, and the Jesus people, they were a big influence on it. And Billy Graham started toying with the Jesus people, but what we can now call the evangelical Christian right didn't really arise until like 78 or 79. Jerry Falwell was kind of the front runner. Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, and the Moral Majority. That was the beginning of something. And it was very synthetic. And, you know, and then there were people like Jack Hyles, for example, who were on the outs with it. You know, Reverend Jack Hyles had the biggest church in the world in the 1980s. Like, he had services. They'd have 3 services every Sunday. There were 20,000 people in that auditorium. And he did bus ministry, you know, to all over the Chicago area, Chicagoland. He bussed them into Hammond Baptist Church in Indiana. You know, and Reverend Jack Hyles, he had literally the biggest church in the world. But Reverend Jack Hyles was not part of the evangelical establishment. Why? He believed women shouldn't wear pants. You know, he was against all dancing. He thought charismatic Christianity and Pentecostalism was a form of witchcraft. his beliefs, he took it too seriously. And because he took it too seriously, it wasn't for mass consumption. It wasn't for mass consumption. And that, you've always had people like Jack Hyles. Jack Hyles was an independent fundamental Baptist, right? You've always had people like him in America that are just really adamant religious people. That's not what the evangelical Christian right is. The evangelical Christian right was very much, it's the non-denominational stuff. It's the mega churches, the Christian rock and roll music, it's that stuff. And that stuff is very synthetic. And that stuff was a way that the Republican Party could kind of ease into the late Cold War normal. It pulled from the aesthetics of the hippies. It pulled from the aesthetics of the hippies. And then it used a very watered down conservative message, and it mixed it in with a lot of right-wing patriotism and Reaganomics and stuff like that. But what you can call the evangelical Christian right is very much a synthetic creation. That said, there are a lot of conservative Christians in America that are organic, right? Like Jack Hyles, independent fundamental Baptist. Those people were organic. Jehovah's Witnesses, people like that. You've always had that in America. That's always just been a big part of America. You've always had very fanatically religious people and very fanatical Protestant Christians in particular. That's a very big part of America. But what we now call the evangelical Christian right is another thing. It's it was a hijacking of some of the elements there to create a very mainstream movement to serve a mainstream political agenda. Jerry Falwell and Pat Robertson engineered it, etc. All righty. Next question. Yeah, this story about John McIntyre, that's wild. This American, he went to fight in Ukraine just to gather intelligence, and then he defected to Russia and gave the Russians all the intelligence on these Ukrainian Nazis. That's awesome. It is awesome. Go and look at that story about John McIntyre. It is something else, man. Go and look at the interview with John McIntyre. That's a wild, wild story. That is a wild story. Wow. Talk about a hero. You know how dangerous that would be to go and volunteer in Ukraine with the Nazis and then run to Russia, give Russia all the info. Whee! That's a wild story. Go and look at the interviews. It's great stuff. The flag protest and all that. We already talked about that. We already addressed that. We did give a mild apology. Which is, look, I mean, if somebody was standing somewhere and stepped on somebody's toes, we're not happy about that. At the same time, we stand by our member. If somebody didn't want members of our organization to have Russian flags, they should have told us. They should have included us in the planning. They should have, I had, one of our members feels very strongly, like all of us, but one of our members brought his Russian flag with him to the rally. And I did a whole interview with him about what happened. So go and watch the interview with him. I'm not going to recant the whole thing here, but there we go. Israel and Azerbaijan have been close since 1992. Not surprising. I mean, I've heard about this. There you go. Occupy leaders shouted you down if you named an organization or demands. I remember that. No demands. That was a big thing. A big part of the, what do you call it? The Occupy Wall Street thing. No demands. And the arguments that people would make were ridiculous. This was one of the arguments I heard. They'd say, well, if we make a demand, Caleb, all the government has to do is give us the demand and then the revolution's over. And so, like I was telling them, we were saying that Occupy should demand full employment, give every American a job. And they're like, all the government has to do is give everyone a job. And I was just like, well, first of all, the government's not just going to give everyone a job because there's a protest, number one. Second of all, if we protested so much that we forced the government to give everyone a job, people would see how people would be inspired and there would be more of an uprising because people would see, wow, but it was like, well, we can't have demands. This isn't really about anything. It's not about politics. Stop co-opting. There was this language they used at Occupy. It was kind of sad. They wanted to make sure it didn't actually have impact other than creating energy for the Democrats. That's what Occupy was meant to do. I was there to promote communism. And honestly, I saw this. I was there like every day. I was at Occupy Wall Street. I would go there after work when I was working at the insurance company. I'd go there on the weekends. There were a lot of holidays. Like I got off, you know, you get all kinds of holidays off in New York. I got like the Sukkot, you know, it was like a holiday. And so I was there, and like, I'll tell you, like, you know, like the approach that communists should have had at Occupy was to understand they were never going to be the leaders, but just go there and meet people and win them to communism. That should have been the approach. And a lot of time was wasted with communists tailing after Occupy Wall Street, not putting forward a communist message and trying to take it over, thinking that they were somehow going to be in charge, thinking that somehow they were going to get to reserve the stage and get the permit. No, you're not. No, you're not. Nuh-uh. No, you're not. You're not going to be able to do that. Not going to happen. So there you go. There you go. Next question. Next question. Next question. All righty. Next question. All right. Did you see the recent article on the World Socialist website? They've really gone down the tubes. I mean, their attack on the Rage Against the War Machine rally was utterly ridiculous. And, you know, they tend to get international issues and they support Assange and stuff. But the way that they went all in against the Rage Against the War Machine rally, they have some kind of like vendetta against Chris Hedges. You know, he was friendly with them for like 2 seconds and then they had a falling out. And like there was like big, long, you know, sections of their tirade against Chris Hedges. That makes no sense to me. That was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Yeah, I mean, you know, I will say that, look, I'm just going to throw this out there, right? What the heck, right? What have I got to lose? David North, the leader of the World Socialist website, the Socialist Equality Party guy. Okay. He's not British, okay? Like, I can't get over this. I've met him in person before. He's not British. He is an American. He's lived in America his whole life, but he talks like this. I'm a British, but he thinks it's like more communist to sound British. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Yes, I talk more British because it's communist. Trotsky. You know, I mean, it's weird. I think that in another life, David North was a James Bond villain. I seriously, I have been in his presence once in my life, and like I could see him petting a cat. Mr. Bond, you are going to die. We're about to drop you into the tank of sharks. I mean, the dude's not British. Like, you can talk like that if you're British, right? If you're from Britain. He's an American, but he thinks that's like more communist. It's like the most cringe thing ever. He wears a suit like what are the 3-piece suit with the vest, you know, and he's like, yes, the young people across America are all getting into Lenin and Trotsky. It's happening. Communism is spreading among the working class. It is happening. The proletariat of America are awakening. We just had a webinar with 12 people. Yes. And it's like he's weird. It's weird. I mean, I sent somebody a video of David North, and they watched it, and they said, are you sure this isn't like Sacha Baron Cohen doing his impression of an evil communist? You know, the fake British accent when he's not British, the suit and everything he does is very spooky. He's got this spooky look in his eyes when he speaks. He speaks like this. He's like trying to be Christopher Lee, like the guy who used to play the vampires or something. It's very odd. It's very, very odd. He's a strange man. And he betrayed Jerry Healy. Fuck you, David North. Fuck you. Jerry Healy. You betrayed Jerry Healy. Jerry Healy was set up by the government. The British government went after him because he was defending Gaddafi, because he was building an organization, and you stabbed Jerry Healy in the back. So fuck you, David. Fuck you, David North, and your fake British accent. You betrayed Jerry Healy. You betrayed Jerry Healy. The MI6, you know, even the mayor of London, Ken Livingstone, says it was a government operation to bring down Jerry Healy. And you stabbed Jerry Healy in the back. So fuck you, David North. Fuck you and your British accent. Oh, yes, Christopher. Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, fuck you, David. You know, read this book about what they did to Jerry Healy. Jerry Healy was this great, amazing socialist leader in Britain, a Trotskyist, pretty of a weird guy, but he was friends with Gaddafi, and he had recruited Vanessa Redgrave, the actress, into his organization. And they went after him, and it was insane what they did to him. It was insane what they did to him. I mean, the details are in this book. I don't want to go into it too much, but it's really, they viciously went after Jerry Healy. They smeared his reputation in the press, and I mean, what did the guy do? He had some girlfriends or something, and it's like, everything, he had some girlfriends, but it was consensual. It was always consensual, but it's like, well, they thought he was a great revolutionary leader. That's why they slept with him. Oh, okay. I suppose he should have told them he was an idiot. Like, it's just like they went after him viciously for having girlfriends, basically. He had girlfriends, and they went after him for it. Meanwhile, they'd sent people into the organization to start stealing the party's assets in the lead up to it. It's really, read the details of what the British government, how they infiltrated and destroyed Jerry Healy's organization. This was the biggest supporter of the Palestinians in Britain. In the 70s and 80s, this guy was like on the vanguard of supporting Palestine. He arranged for Vanessa Redgrave to make a movie about the Palestinians. He was such an important pro-Palestine activist. Like, he spoke at the funerals of prominent Palestinian fighters. Jerry Healy, that was a working class anti-imperialist strongman, right? And he had girlfriends. And the British press went crazy. Oh my God, Jerry Healy, used apartments owned by his party to sleep with his girlfriends or something. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, and it was just, the whole thing was stupid. It was utterly stupid. And they, and then they had sent people into the group who started stealing the party's assets and money. And they had a daily newspaper in Britain. I mean, again, Trotskyites are not perfect. They're weird, but the way they went after Jerry Healy, David North stabbed Jerry Healy in the back. He was the leader of Jerry Healy's American organization, and he stabbed him in the back at a moment when Jerry Healy was under vicious attack from MI6, when the newspapers in Britain were all running a bunch of sex gossip about, oh my God, the leader of a socialist group had girlfriends. Can't have that. His secretary, he'd been having an affair with his secretary. His secretary got jealous, and she went to the media. Oh my God, Jerry Healy has girlfriends in the party, and the media went all after him, and they destroyed the Workers' Revolutionary Party. And then Jerry Healy was stabbed in the back by David North. David North, you stabbed in the back the guy you stole your British accent from. The only reason, I'm convinced, I've been told, the only reason David North has a British accent is because he was mentored by Jerry Healy, who's actually British. And Jerry Healy taught him how to be a Marxist and how to give speeches. So now David North talks like this because he learned how to speak from Jerry Healy, who he stabbed in the back. So fuck you, David. I don't want to hear about World Socialist website anymore. They do good work for Assange, but the way that they threw Rage Against the War Machine under the bus, and the way that a lot of the stuff they're doing now, they're an irrelevant sectarian, ultra Trotskyist, Orthodox Trotskyist group. And Jerry Healy accomplished 1,000 times more than the World Socialist website ever has. I'll tell you that much. Jerry Healy was the defender of the Palestinians. Jerry Healy was the defender of Gaddafi in Libya. He built a real mass anti-imperialist group in Britain in the 1980s. And when it got wrecked, David North abandoned ship. He abandoned ship over nothing. And he made some silly excuses. He couldn't even just be like, oh, he made it about dialectics or something. Like, if you read about it in here, it's like his attack is he didn't agree with Jerry about like the way the dialectical materialist blah, blah, blah works or some shit. It wasn't even a real legit attack. It was just it was like he invented some complicated philosophical thing in order to go after Jerry Healy. It was a bad thing to do. And it was funds from Jerry Healy that set up David North. Folks, for those of you who don't realize, David North actually owns a big, huge printing company. That's how he pays for the World Socialist website. And that huge printing company that he owns, the money he got for it most likely came from Jerry Healy. Jerry Healy arranged for David North to own a big printing company in Michigan. So, yeah, David North is a slimy bastard, in my opinion. Sue me, David. All right. All right. Next question. Wow, this has gotten to be a negative stream. I should be nicer on here, shouldn't I? I'm trying to get everyone to get along and work together. I've been on here being negative and complaining all night. I ought to do better than that. I ought to do better than that. But there you go. There you go. All right. Can you give a history of the Troubles and your view of Irish reunification? I am in favor of 32 county sovereignty. There should be one Ireland, one united Ireland. That's what I believe. I don't know. You want to give me a history? There was, right. So then you had James Connolly. You had the uprising that happened, 1916, the Easter Rising. It was brutally crushed by the British, but then that, the way it was brutally crushed, that kind of gave birth to, the uprisings that laid the basis for the Irish Free State. And then from there, you had starting during the Second World War, there was still a bunch of Irish nationalism going on. You had the Irish Civil War between the Free Staters and the people that were fighting for United Ireland. And then on top of that, what was it? On top of that, you had, and then in the 60s, it started out, the Protestants were being very violent to the Catholics. And so at first, the Catholic communities were cheering and welcoming the British military because they thought it was going to protect them. But then it became pretty clear the British military was there to protect the Protestants and to treat them as a colonized people. So then you had the formation of the Provisional Irish Republican Army, the Provos, and the Provisional Irish Republican Army was in northern, in the 6 counties that are occupied, fighting. And they the 70s and 80s, they were waging armed attacks. You also had the Irish National Liberation Army, which was another armed group. And they existed. You had the hunger strikes in the 80s, continued bombings, etc. There's a lot I could talk about. I actually talk about, in the new book, I talk about Frank Kitson and the role of Frank Kitson and his counter-ganging methods and its use against the IRA. And I talk about fourth generation warfare and William, what is his name? The Pentagon strategist who coined fourth generation warfare. What's his name? William S. Lind. I talk about him. He talks a lot about Northern Ireland and how it was they were able to engineer the Good Friday Agreement. I talk about that all in the new book. The new book is coming out soon. It's with the proofreader right now. I'm very excited. All right. International travel has played a big role in your political development. Will you continue traveling? Of course. I leave the country quite frequently. It's been a while since the pandemic. I haven't traveled as much, but I went to Nicaragua last year, and I'm not opposed to traveling again. I do. You travel some, you get it wears you out a little bit, right? And the thrill of it, when you haven't done it before, there's a lot more thrill in it. I've done it now, so it's not as thrilling, but yeah, I would travel again. I'd like to head back to Latin America, head back to Russia, head back to the Middle East, head to China, Yeah, I'd love to travel. All right. What communist country is best to visit from the West? Well, it depends what part of the West, but if you mean the United States, Nicaragua is like right there. It's like boom, but there's a lot. Culturally, the Latin American countries are going to be the closest to the Western countries, culturally speaking, right? If you go to North Korea, it's going to be just a completely different culture. That's why they demonize North Korea so effectively. They demonize North Korea very, very effectively because it's a different culture, right? It's very Confucian, there's a lot of the filial piety and stuff. And so a lot of the stuff they demonize North Korea over in America is just cultural differences. And they do that in South Korea too. There's filial piety there. There's cultural traditions. The South Korean auto companies, they have pictures of the CEO up on the wall. People bow to the CEO. It's not, but if you're from the West, if you're from the United States, Western Europe, New Zealand, I would recommend you visit a Latin American communist country. Visit Cuba, visit Venezuela, visit Nicaragua. That's what I would recommend. That's my advice. Next question. This came up on another stream too. Did the Lend-Lease program, it's like the amount of astronomical sacrifice that the Soviet Union made in defeating the Nazis. The fact that they didn't open a second front until like the Soviet Union was already winning and had already turned the tide of the war at the Battle of Stalingrad. All of that is pretty important. And they just, there's always got to be some way the Soviet Union didn't do it. First, they say it was the winter. Then you point out actually the Nazis specifically planned to avoid the winter. And then it was the Lend-Lease no, communism could never have possibly done anything good. So, it's like, come on, look at the facts. Look at the facts. Look at what was said by American military generals about the achievements of Stalin. I understand you're not allowed to ever admit the Soviet Union did anything good, but they did. You're in the San Francisco Bay Area, the land of PSL and DSA. What can you do? Join the Center for Political Innovation. We've got people out there. Ryan's out there. The man with the flag, he's out there in the Bay Area. He's in Oakland. We got people out in the Bay Area. We got people, we have books to distribute. We don't at this point put our books on Kindle, but we do, if you want to become a book distributor, we can arrange that and join the CPI. We're going to have a California conference soon. We're heading out to the West Coast next. After DC, the next stop is going to be Portland, Oregon. So, we're doing Portland, Oregon next. The date is not set. We're just focused on our March conference. But after that, the next place we want to do an event is going to be Portland, Oregon. So, by all means, and then after that, we want to do something in California. We haven't been to the Bay Area yet. We did something in LA recently. And we did something in Austin. We did something in Chicago. We want to do something in the Bay Area. So, by all means, please get involved and help us build for a Bay Area event. Join the CPI, come on our weekly Zoom calls. We also need to have a Southern conference. We need to do something in Florida or Atlanta soon, right? We need to have a Southern conference. It needs to happen. All right. What's your take on the sad coverage of the U.S. invasion and occupation? Are you talking about Haiti? Because, it's just, they portray it as just they're going in to protect people, but it's really, it's the USA is going in there to make sure that there's no resistance. And the way I see it, I think that there is a solid block of resistance forming in Haiti. So there you go. All right. All righty. Cool. All right. Do you know any communist flat earthers? No, I do not. I do not know any communist flat earthers. I don't. There are some scientific debates among communists internationally that I know nothing about. I can't really comment on them, but none of them are flat earth related. There are some communists who reject the new physics. There's a book called The Big Bang Never Happened by Dr. Eric Lerner. He's a Marxist. And there is the communist rejection of the new physics is quite popular in Asia and in Africa and Latin America. There are some communists who argue that dialectical materialism rejects Einsteinian physics. And the new physics of Einstein is not consistent with dialectical materialism. Dr. Eric Lerner wrote a book about it. Mike Gimbel wrote a book about it. I respect both of those people, but I know nothing about physics. So I could not defend their theses. And I don't know if they're right. I don't know anything about physics. The other thing is there's AIDS. There's controversy about AIDS, right? There are some communists, especially in Africa, who argue that AIDS is not what they say it is. That the AIDS crisis is more about the fact that countries don't have modern sewage systems. And it's about the fact that imperialism has kept countries without proper sanitation, without water infrastructure, and that is the basis of the AIDS crisis. And I don't understand the science either. I know nothing about this, but there are some communists in Africa especially, but in Asia and other places, who believe that there's some kind of AIDS cover-up and that the way we understand HIV/AIDS is not correct. I don't know anything about that, and I'm not endorsing that because I don't know anything about it. That's the other big controversy. Those are the two big science controversies among communists that I know of, are the rejection of the new physics and rejection of HIV/AIDS, the way people understand it. And I don't know anything about either of those things. The J. Posadas and Flying Sauce, yeah, that's like one crazy Trotskyist group. They're not a big thing. But yeah, the two big. Every so often you will get communists that reject an aspect of things that are widely believed by the scientific community. And, there you go. It happens. And I am not a scientist. And so I don't comment on things like that. There are some communists who don't believe in global warming. That's been around for a long time. In like Sweden and places like that, there are a lot of like hardline Marxist Leninists who reject global warming. That exists. But I mean, there's a lot of people who reject global warming on the political right as well. And, so there you go. All right, folks. It's been fun. It's been fun. Eric Lerner headed up LaRouche Fusion Energy Foundation in the 70s. That is correct. He's not with them any longer. Now he's a follower of the Luxembourgist International. I interviewed him years ago for Press TV. I did a story about he runs the Fusion Energy Center of New Jersey. And he was collaborating with a lab in Iran to work on fusion energy. And I really support fusion energy research. I've been to his facility to do a story on it. He's something special, but he had a falling out with LaRouche in the 70s. That's true. He was with LaRouche when LaRouche was still calling himself a Marxist, and then they had a falling out. Now he's part of the Luxembourgist International. I still get his emails regularly. I get his emails about Luxembourgism. So it's been a while since I've ever talked to him. I just know he's a big fusion energy research guy in New Jersey. So there you go. There you go. But, the fact that this guy, he's the top fusion energy researcher in New Jersey, and he rejects the new physics, that's respectable. You don't get that job. It costs a lot of money to do fusion energy research. You don't get that job, if you're not qualified. So that makes me think there might be something to the critique of the new physics, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I honestly know nothing about physics, absolutely nothing. So there you go. There you go. All right, folks. I'm going to put on the closing music. It's been fun. Please help us with the March conference. We need your help. Surge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. While the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.